my dear readers, listeners, and of course, friends. As we embark on this critical examination of the discourse between Jordan Peterson and Dr. Phil McGraw, it is imperative to approach with the skepticism, rigor, and indeed the intellectual veracity that the subject matter at hand undeniably warrants. For in their attempt to navigate the stormy seas of faith, family, and science, our interlocutors, armed with nothing but their reputations and the public's esteem, seem to have embarked on a journey not of exploration, but rather of bewildering oversimplification and egregious fallacy. Let us first turn our gaze to Dr. Phil's proclamation, delivered with the kind of unwavering conviction one might reserve for the Declaration of Natural Laws. We're coddling these students, we're not preparing them for the next level of life. One must pause and ponder upon this assertion, for it is flung into the public discourse with reckless abandon, bereft of the empirical foundation upon which such sweeping judgments must surely rest. The generalization assaults the complexity of educational systems with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, leaving in its wake a multitude of unanswered questions. Where, one must inquire, is the data to substantiate this broad indictment of pedagogical approaches? It appears we are witness to a peculiar form of diagnosis, one that presumes to understand the ailment without ever having consulted the patient. As our conversation ventures deeper into the quagmire of gender identity and the purported contagion effect among young women identifying as transgender, one cannot help but recoil at the usage of such a term. To suggest a social and psychological phenomenon of profound personal significance could be likened to a disease is to engage in a form of discourse that is not only scientifically dubious but fundamentally dehumanizing. The complexity of gender identity, with its myriad societal, psychological, and biological facets, demands an approach of empathy, intellectual humility, and a deep commitment to understanding, qualities conspicuously absent in the reductive rhetoric employed by our speakers. Furthermore, their critique of the governmental response to the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly the prolonged closure of educational institutions, oscillates perilously between the genuinely concern-worthy and the perilously simplistic. While the impact on mental health and educational achievement is indeed a matter of grave concern, there is a disturbing lack of acknowledgement of the context within which these decisions were made. The framing of this critique betrays a lack of appreciation for the unprecedented nature of the pandemic and the agonizing complexity of the decisions faced by those in positions of authority. It is as though, with the benefit of hindsight, our speakers considered themselves endowed with an infallibility that eluded those tasked with navigating these turbulent waters in real time. Alas, as we wade through the discourse, what becomes increasingly evident is not the illumination of the subjects under discussion, but rather a retreat into the comforting embrace of generalizations and anecdotal evidence. The conversation, though it purports to tackle issues of paramount importance, too often lacks the depth, the empirical engagement, and the nuanced understanding that these topics demand. One yearns for a discussion that not only interrogates the available evidence but also wrestles with the inherent messiness and complexity of the human condition and societal organization. In their commendable, albeit flawed, attempt to engage with these monumental issues, Peterson and McGraw inadvertently reveal the limitations of their approach. The discourse, for all its bluster, too often skirts the edges of intellectual rigor, choosing instead to bask in the glow of unchallenged assertions and comfortable simplifications. To truly engage with the topics of faith, family, and science, to do justice to their complexity and their significance in our lives, demands more than the occasional foray into the realm of the anecdotal or the superficial. It requires a steadfast commitment to the pursuit of understanding, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and perhaps most crucially, an openness to having one's preconceptions challenged and, if necessary, dismantled. And so, while our interlocutors may derive a measure of satisfaction from their exchange, we, the ardent seekers of wisdom and truth, must hold fast to higher standards. We must look beyond the superficial allure of easy answers and demand the rigorous, evidence-based engagement that these critical issues deserve. For in the quest for understanding, it is not the volume of one's voice that matters, nor the certainty with which one speaks, but rather the integrity of one's argument, and the willingness to venture, with humility and curiosity, into the vast, uncharted territories of human knowledge.